But 900?
500?
So,
Hey.
anyway, of course he gave it to Solomon, but there was a jealous son, and I can't remember his name. It started with A. Abijah, was it, or something like that? Huh?
Absalom?
Absalom, yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a war, and so they split up, and Judah and Benjamin and became one nation, and that was Judah. And then all the other tribes went up to the north. They set up another temple, another tabernacle in Samaria,
Yes.
and started worshiping there, which was totally against what the God of heaven and earth told people to do. But
Yeah.
and then they settled up there, and they crossbred with the people of Samaria. And that's where the Jews developed a hatred for Samaritans. Well, anyway, Ephraim just grew worse and worse and worse and got into idol worship to the point where God divorced him. He says, I don't want to have anything to do with these people. And he prophesied that they would be dispersed, attacked by the Syrians, and dispersed. And certainly they were. I think it was like 722 BC,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
I don't know for sure.
And they were. He swore that they would be dispersed, never to return again.
Yep.
Okay.
And,
Oh, sorry. So anyway, they were known. They knew where they were at the time of Yeshua because I think it was one of the apostles wrote a letter, and it says to the lost tribes of Israel or something like that.
Yeah, and there's actually several of them. Several times in the New Testament, they mention, well, like when Yeshua said something about, you don't know where I'm going, or you have no idea where I'm going, and they all look at each other and go, is he going to talk? Is he going to go to the Jews in the diaspora?
Right.
Go preach to the Jews in the diaspora?
Uh-huh.
I mean, it was well known that they were around in the area, and they were,
Right. They were dispersed north and east of Israel.
Yeah.
And over time, after the dispersion of the Jews in 70 AD, actually 135 AD was the last dispersion, but they were moved north and they were absorbed. And history tells us, if you read back and you study this, that they basically went up north of the Caucasus. The Scythians, I think, were the people that lived up there, and they made their way to the west and into Eastern Europe and Western Europe. Now, okay, so we got some interesting things that are happening here. Okay, they've moved into Eastern and Western Europe, and of course, southern Russia, and who knows where else? Because there's tribes all over the world that claim to be descendants of Israel.
Right.
But so they move into the Eastern Western Europe, and of course they intermarry.
Right.
And intermarry and intermarry and intermarry and intermarry, and so you have people that are still have a genetic marker of Israel, but they're Gentiles for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, and I think that they that's what the Jews considered. They didn't consider the Israelis, like I'm just going to call them that for now,
okay.
The people that were in the diaspora, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't consider them to be Jews.
Right.
They considered them to be Gentiles.
Because they're so watered down.
Yeah. So, because they were into paganism, they were into, they did so many other, they didn't believe the way that, because when they went up into the north, and had their idol worship, they had two different places where they set up, a so-called temple so they could worship there. So the king in the north, Jeroboam or Rehoboam or whichever one it was, he set them up in the north so that the Jews in the north wouldn't go down to Jerusalem to worship during feast times, so that he wouldn't lose his people, so to speak. He didn't want to, he wanted them to stay in the north and worship there. Mm-hmm. So that's why he sent, set up those worship sites, and one of them happened to be in Samaria up there.
Right.
And so the Jews in the southern kingdom they just figured, well, they're into paganism now. They don't worship in Jerusalem anymore, so they've set up their own thing and they worship idols and so.
Mm-hmm. So time went on, moved on, and the Roman Empire had collapsed and everything, and so these people were intermarried, and then the Judah was dispersed all over the world, but mostly in Eastern and Western Europe and Southern Europe. As time goes on, you got the Catholic Church, and it's becoming more and more and more corrupt. Well, it was born corrupt, but it just kept getting worse and worse. But there was always a remnant of people that didn't ascribe to Catholicism, to Roman Catholicism, or to Orthodoxy in the East, and they were always persecuted. They were always burned at the stake, and went through terrible things. So much so that it's thought that 70 million Christians died at the hands of the Roman Catholic Church. So anyway, so you have the Reformation, and then you have the Industrial Revolution, and in between there in 1492, you have Columbus rediscovering America because Europeans had been there way before that. Mm-hmm. And with him, he brought Catholicism, but he also brought hope for the Jews of Spain, because a lot of people don't know this, but on one of his trips, he brought quite a few people who were of Jewish extract, and they settled in Mexico. So much so that there are many Mexican Americans, or Mexicans in general, that have Jewish blood in them, actually. And and they're not afraid to admit it either. And so anyway, so you have some Jews going to Mexico. So a lot stayed in Europe, but then you have the Gentiles that had the Jewish marker, or excuse me, the Israeli marker, Ephraim. So all of a sudden, this nation called America starts taking people in because they wanted to grow, and you have all these people that are moving from Europe into America, and they're all coming from England and Ireland and Germany and Italy and things like that, and Poland, all those nations, and so you have all these Gentiles that are coming to the United States with markers of that belong to Ephraim, and so. My contention is that all of Israel will be saved because America right now is a storehouse for the genetic marker of Ephraim. I mean, there's Gentiles in Europe and everywhere else that have that marker too, but I think that God actually created or let this country be created, I should say, so that we could be a storehouse for Jews and for Ephraimites. But when you guys were growing up, folks, did you have that one Christian that just nagged the heck out of you and you just couldn't handle them, and you wish they would go away, but the more you wished that, the more they hung around, and they preached to you so much that you hated their guts, but after a while you relented and you became a believer. Well, I think that's the way that the world sees us, and as much as we wanted our friends to go away, the world wants us to go away. American society does anymore, and just like the Jews that lived in Egypt at the time of the first Exodus, they got under it was Moses and Aaron really, but I'm sure that when Pharaoh thought of, he just didn't think of Moses and Aaron. He thought of all the children of Israel and how much he really despised them, and that's why he said, take your people and go, get out of here, and I got a feeling that that's going to happen here in the United States, Kristen. I think that. People are, because we're always talking against abortion. We're talking about everything that the world likes to do and has fun doing.
Yeah, and doesn't like to hear us tell them that it's wrong.
Right, exactly. So they're going to put up with it for so long, but the atmosphere is going to get so terrible that they're going to say, you know what, get out of here or die.
Yeah.
And so we were broadcasting this one day, Jim and I, because we did this several years ago, but. He had a lady call him up after the broadcast, mm-hmm. and she said, this just really blows my mind because, a few weeks ago I had this dream where I saw all this strife and everything in the United States, but I saw a Red Cross flag over Canada. Mm-hmm. And so, we prayed about it and kind of got the impression that, when things get bad here, Canada is going to accept us, but they're only going to be a launching station. And I really do think that, the evangelical Christians in the United States, and I'll say Canada too, have always supported Israel. And Israel knows that to some degree, but something's going to happen where they're going to say, hey, you know what? These guys really like us, and it's because they're Ephraimites.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when we're told to get out, Israel's going to open up the doors and say, hey, you guys always took care of us. Let us take care of you. Come here. And all of Israel being saved, well, most of the Christians that are going to leave are saved already, right? They're saved spiritually, but they'll be saved physically. And then I'm sure that the country's going to say to all the Jews here, you get out too, and they'll go too. So and that would be the revelation or the fulfillment of the second Exodus. And, man, it'll be glorious. But I didn't want to give the whole banana away here. But it just happened to go that way. But
yeah, no. Obviously, that was a good way to go then.
But you know what, Kristen? Here's another interesting thing that just gave me shivers when the Lord showed it to me. And a lot of Christians know this. That it's said in Scripture that the wild branches, meaning the Gentiles, will be grafted into the main root or the groomed root, right?
Yeah.
Now, what does it say? It says wild olive branches will be groomed in, right? Wild olive branches are essentially just regular olives that have not been not been pruned and taken care of. That's why they're wild. So when you're grafting wild olive branches into the root, you're actually grafting something with the same DNA into the olive tree. So they would have to have the same DNA, right?
Yeah, you're right.
You'd think. Because when you graft, you can put anything. I can graft peaches into a pear tree.
Yeah, pears into apples.
So if God wanted to talk about Gentiles, he could have said, well, I'm going to graft apples into your olive tree, and you're going to live together and everything else. But no, he goes out of his way to say that it's going to be wild olive branches. I just thought that was amazing. That
is an interesting thought right there. Yep. Yeah. Very interesting.
Ooh, I got those shivers going up my spine again.
Very cool. I like it.
Since there's an Exodus coming, don't you think we should be prepared?
Yes, we should. And going back to the first Exodus, it's interesting to look back there. I think that it would be worth going back and reading on that. The last couple weeks have been in the Torah portions have been surrounding that time in history. With the miracles and the contentions between Moses and Pharaoh and the hardening of the hearts and all that stuff, and where he finally just says, okay, that's it, get out of here. Mm-hmm. Take your people and go. And then he finally, they finally leave and how, and they were somewhat prepared. They had gathered, they had they were told to talk to your neighbors, talk to the Egyptians around, and they were, they collected basically. I mean, the Egyptians that they talked to basically gave them their gold, their silver, their jewelry, all their stuff, their clothes, their valuables. They just handed it over to the Jews, and they left with treasure. Basically, they pillaged the Egyptians as they left, and so I don't know how prepared their hearts were. They knew that, I'm sure Moses was letting them know that, hey, we're going to be leaving, get yourselves ready. And they just had the Passover meal, which was standing. They ate while standing, getting ready to go with their their shoes on and their staff in their hand, and they were, ready to go.